comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, except for you, John, because you are blocked. Check out.
Fuck you, John. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses nerddom through various segments. My name's Tyler Hunt, and I'm here with my co-host, as always, Pat Kuhn.
We're a little close today.
Yeah, we haven't. So, I mean, obviously nobody can see us right now, but we're using the same mic today because I'm a dumbass and forgot my mic in Cleveland. And we haven't done this since the early days.
Yeah, so for long-time listeners, for I think it was probably the first 20 or 30 episodes, we just had one microphone. And, well, we actually did the first, I think 5 episodes in separate rooms with 2 different microphones where we realized that was super awkward. I mean, we were awkward anyway, so why even make it more awkward by not being able to see each other? And so when we decided to use the same microphone, we were just sat neck close to each other, and your leg keeps brushing up against my leg. It's making me very uncomfortable.
This was all actually an elaborate plot by me to just get closer to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could just ask.
No, but how's it going, man? Haven't talked to you in a couple weeks, I guess.
Yeah, it's been kind of a weird week for me. I basically just got offered a new job. It's pretty similar to what I'm doing right now, but it's a little more money, so that'll be nice. I basically just have to do the whole jumping through hoops, though. I have to apply for it, and I have to actually do an interview and stuff like that. But I've been kind of assured that it's my job if I want it. And it'll be a nice little change of pace. I had that, which was good, and then I kind of had to fight with some douchebag on YouTube for a while a couple days ago. So that was always interesting, just to have hey, I had this good thing happen to me, and then I also had this it was fun for a while, but then it got really weird and shitty, so I just blocked him.
I get the notifications for the YouTube, and I didn't see any of this. What were you guys arguing about?
It was funny because, just completely honest, every once in a while when I do a video, I will set up a Google ad to kind of pimp it a little bit. I mean, because there's so many Let's Players out there. I'm trying to get our name, but I mean, let's be honest, it's mostly me with the YouTube. I mean, it's under the banner of the Nerd You're Looking For, of course. And so every once in a while, not every video, mind you, every once in a while when there's a video that I particularly like, I will set up a Google ad. $2, literally $2. And it'll run for a day, and it gets a little bit more traction than my regular videos. But for the most part, don't do it on every video. This guy apparently stumbled across one of my videos that was on an ad. And that's the only reason he saw it. And he was very angry about that. And at first, he was being, the cliche, mean, just outrageous kind of guy on YouTube. And that was fine because I thought that was kind of funny. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll play with this guy. I don't care about the ad. I'm not embarrassed. Obviously, I just said it to you guys. If I was trying to hide it, I would have just been like, oh, I don't know what he was talking about. But I mean, it is what it is. That's what I do. I'm not embarrassed about it. So I just didn't want to argue with him on his level. I wanted just to kind of make fun of him and try to kill him with kindness at one point. And it was he just didn't get that I was fucking with him for a while. And then it just got to the point where you can only be called a so many times before it got really old. It's not even the word. It's just the fact that he kept saying the same thing over and over again. I was like, at least you can argue that I wasn't funny, but at least I was trying to be creative with my responses. He was just like, you're and your videos suck. And it was just I was listening to a broken record. So eventually I was just enjoy your mom's basement. And then I just blocked him because I don't want to hear the comments every single video. I'm not going to stop doing the ads because, like I said, I don't do them for every video, but they're beneficial every once in a while. So I'm not going to stop doing it. And obviously he's not going to stop commenting when he sees the videos. So it's just best for both parties involved if we just don't talk to each other anymore. Because at a certain point, I just got tired of it and I think it was at the point where I accused him of being in love with me that I kind of set him off into the deep end. But it was fun for a little bit, but you can only be called for so long before you're just like, all right, let's just not talk for a while.
Dude, you keep making my butthole just clench up when you say that word. And I'm really starting to regret the few people I work with that I told that I do this podcast.
I wasn't the one that used the word. I actually don't think I ever called him a name at all. Like, I even said at one point, I was like, dude, like, seriously, say something else, because I've remained civil this entire time. Like, I was fucking with him for sure, but I never once said any, like, I think he called me a at one point, a pussy. Like, I could name all of the things that he called me. I never called him one name. I mean, I fucked with him hard, but I just, at a certain point, it gets really old really quickly. Like, come up with something else.
Yeah, I think that you probably put up with it longer than most people would have before blocking him. So,
yeah, for sure. I think it was Thursday. Like, literally on that particular video, I think there's like 14 comments, and it's mostly just us going back and forth because it got pretty ridiculous. I don't think you can even see the comments anymore. I don't know how that works. I've never blocked anybody on YouTube before, mostly because it takes a lot for me to get annoyed, and because you're not going to hurt my feelings. You're a fucking stranger. Like, that's the thing. Like, he was never going to say something. I'm like, oh, that son of a bitch. Like, it was fun for a while and it stopped being fun. So I blocked him. Yeah.
That is interesting. And I don't know that I have any more comments.
Good. I'll just block you anyways. So if this is your first episode, we start off each episode by just kind of checking in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
I watched The Babysitter, which is a new Netflix original movie. And whenever I saw that this existed and was being released, I had mixed feelings a bit because mostly concerning who directed it. So Mick G directed this movie, and he does not have a great track record. I actually looked it up today, and I think that he's done a lot of TV shows. He did like one of the Charlie's Angels movies. He did Terminator Salvation, which is okay, but for the most part, it's a big old pile of shit. But he did this movie as well, and I thought it was a cool premise. And of course, we're right in the middle of Shocktober, so I thought it'd be a good watch. And that being said, it was really good. Like what drew me to it, I talked about it being a cool premise. It reminded me a little bit of Fright Night in that it was like a throwback to suburban horror, kind of like that movie was, and the remake specifically, and why you and I like it so much. So again, all in all, I really love this movie, and we'll see what happens between now and the end of October. But right now, I would currently say that it's probably my favorite first viewing for Shocktober. For those that don't know what this movie is about, I've kind of been tiptoeing around the plot a little bit. A boy is spying on his babysitter, who also happens to be his best friend, when he's supposed to be in bed. Things then take an unexpected turn, and I've decided to not spoil what he sees when he's spying on his babysitter, even though most reviews and the plot synopsis has, because I think that if you go into it fresh, it might be a little bit more out there.
I thought the trailer kind of doesn't the trailer spoil it?
I didn't watch the trailer.
That's the only reason I even knew this movie existed, because what did I watch on Netflix? And they always just start something right off the bat. I want to say it was when we finished our season 1 Stranger Things rewatch. My wife and I, was the first time I saw the trailer for this, and I thought it looked really fucking stupid. And then I had heard some good things. My buddy Mike, who brought me into Shocktober, he was the first one I knew even did it. He's formerly from the Obsessive Viewer. He's crazy about horror movies just like we are, and he gave it some pretty good reviews. So I was like, oh, well, maybe it's one of those tongue-in-cheek, like Dale and Tucker versus Evil, or that type of horror movie that's a little bit more comedy than horror. So I thought it looked kind of interesting, and I watched it as well.
Yeah, so I think when it comes down to me loving this movie, like a friend of mine that I used to work with, shout out to Jesse, pretty much hit the nail on the head for me. Why, when he was kind of dissecting why I like this movie so much, and it's that I'm not only a sucker for coming of age movies, but I think my favorite hero archetype is the nerdy, socially awkward kid that comes of age, and that's exactly what this movie is. It's not necessarily scary, but it tells a really fun story and it has moments where it's pretty funny. I think the suspense is pretty good, and I also really found myself loving the cast a lot. There's a huge charm factor with its actors, especially Judah Lewis, who plays Cole, the kid that is too old to have a babysitter, and then Samara Weaving plays B, the babysitter in question, and I thought she was fantastic as well. They had really great on-screen chemistry, and you end up caring about their relationship, which is especially impressive because there's obviously an age gap between the two. So honestly, I'll probably watch this movie again before Shocktober's over. I mean, you take my favorite type of movie, which is coming of age, and mix it with horror. And for me, you have a future mainstay that I'll probably revisit most years.
So I liked this movie. I don't think I know for a fact I didn't like it as much as you did. I thought the nerdy kid was a little too clever. Like, I don't think that particular character actually exists in the real world. But, I mean, you could say that for pretty much every movie.
I think that, when you think of horror movies, you always think of characters being dumb and doing dumb things. And what I liked is, there's a part where he actually does get to call the cops, and he's kind of making the right moves. But you're right. At a certain point, it almost becomes like a gory version of Home Alone.
Yeah, so he does call the cops, and the cops do come, and we did this episode a long time ago. I think it was actually back when we used to do the one microphone sitting next to each other. We did, I don't know if it was the horror tropes or just movie tropes in general, and I mentioned that I hate when there's like that Mexican standoff where there's just two people aiming guns at each other. I'm like, just shoot, that person's dead, and you don't have to worry about them having a gun. Well, Mike, again, from the Obsessive Viewer, mentioned there's a part where the cops come and the movie could legitimately be over because one of the characters kills one of the cops. The other cop just freezes and doesn't do anything. And then they, of course, kill that cop, too. If that cop, well within the law, just fucking shot all of them, the movie is over, and he would have and could have in real life. So
yeah, exactly. You're right. That was very unbelievable because in real life, the cops would shoot first and ask questions later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, none of them were black.
No, so. one of them was still black at the time, I believe. The black character was still alive.
I forgot that he was still alive because he dies pretty quickly, which is another horror trope, which I actually appreciated because I think they, like I said, it's kind of that movie that's a little tongue-in-cheek that kind of plays on the horror trope, so I appreciate that. I just kind of like the design of the movie. I liked that every once in a while they'd have the graphics that would fly across the screen. I thought that was kind of cute. But overall, like I said, I didn't love this movie, but I was pleasantly surprised because, like I said, it wasn't on my radar at all. I saw the trailer, thought it looked stupid, heard some good things, most notably from Mike, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it.
Cool. So what are you into?
I am into another kind of comedy/horror movie that I saw recently called Happy Death Day, which is, I can't think of a worse title in the history of cinema. Like, it's so stupid. I hate it so much. But once you get past that, it's basically just a slasher version of Groundhog Day. And it's directed by Christopher Landon, who is a name that I didn't know, but I actually looked up his filmography, and he's written a lot of horror movies. Not all good, but I think he wrote most of the Paranormal Activity movies. Sorry, spoiler alert, if you still thought that those were real, like found footage movies. They're not. They're written. The thing that he did that I was most notable as far as I was concerned was he wrote and directed A Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which, do not fucking see that movie. It's a dumpster fire. I hated it. If you don't already know what this movie is about, it follows the main character, Tree, who is living the day of her murder on a loop while trying to find her killer's identity. I think that, I mean, we've talked about this before. that people give Rotten Tomatoes shit a lot. And obviously we don't think like that, but I think this is kind of the perfect movie to use Rotten Tomatoes for, because I saw the trailer, thought it looked stupid, just like The Babysitter. I thought the title was awful. The movie looked like Groundhog's Day, but just dumb. And I just had no intention of seeing this movie at all. And then the reviews started coming in. They were getting decent reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, hey, well, maybe I'm wrong. I saw a 2-minute trailer. It looked dumb, but it's almost a 2-hour movie, so obviously I only saw a little bit of it. So maybe I'm wrong here. And I have Movie Pass. I'm a horror fan, so it doesn't really take too big of a percentage on Rotten Tomatoes to convince me to go. I think the last time I checked, this movie was at like 68% for the horror genre. That's pretty good. So I was actually kind of looking forward to seeing it, because I'd heard that it was kind of funny, and then it played off those horror tropes, and it kind of self-aware and knew what it was and all that good stuff. It's pretty much exactly that. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's more of a comedy than it is a horror. Of course, I counted it for my Shocktober viewing that particular day, but it's definitely more of a comedy than a horror. I think that it does a really, really good job of keeping it light as you can have a movie about someone getting murdered over and over again. I think they do a pretty good job. The only thing that there's a couple of nitpicks here and there that I didn't like about it, but I think that at times, most of the movie, it's a comedy. And then they have a really good way, like I said, of balancing that. But I think at times they're like, oh, we kind of want this to be a horror movie too. And so they start kind of taking it a little bit serious. And I just didn't like those parts. Like, I didn't think those parts were as effective as the comedy was. I will say that there was a moment where they plant pretty hard who the killer is. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I would have been really disappointed if that's who it was, because it just didn't make any sense to me for that to be the actual killer. So, of course I won't give it away who it is, but, they do rectify that towards the end of the movie. But, I would have been really disappointed if that was it. I kind of wish they were a little bit more self-aware. Like I said, it's basically just Groundhog Day it's basically a slasher version of that movie. And they do make a Groundhog Day joke, but it's at the very end. It's like one of the last minutes of the movie. And I kind of wish that they did a little bit more of that throughout the movie, kind of a little bit more self-aware that you're legitimately just stealing this concept from another movie. But overall, I was really pleasantly surprised at how much I like this movie.
Yeah, I went and saw this earlier this week as well, and I was resistant to seeing it at first too, because it looked like it was just a cash-in for Friday the 13th. That was its release date, and a movie called Happy Death Day, like you said. It just sounds like total garbage. But, Blumhouse has a pretty good track record at this point, and I really ended up enjoying this movie like you did, and I rated it like a half star less than The Babysitter, so I wouldn't say that this was my favorite first watch so far in Shocktober. But it is definitely up there. It's definitely something that I'll probably buy when it comes out on Blu-ray, and I look forward to watching it again because I thought it was a lot of fun. I wish it had been rated R, but that's forgivable for sure.
Yeah, I think it could have been better if it was rated R. There was a couple of scenes where they kind of just had to cut and went right to her waking up, instead of actually showing the kill, because they wanted to keep that PG-13 rating. Maybe it could have been fun to see her. But honestly, I think they showed her enough actually dying that I think it was enough. At a certain point, I think Groundhog Day is not necessarily about him dying over and over again. But like Edge of Tomorrow is very much like, I think that movie does a good job of not showing you over and over again. Like, they do that cool montage, but you don't stay in that part of the movie for too long. They get you the concept, have a little bit of fun with it, and then they kind of move on. And I think this does not quite as good of a job as your Tomorrow, but I think that they do a pretty good job. But like you said, it could have gone rated R, and maybe you could have seen a little bit more gruesome kills in there.
Yeah.
All right, so want to move on to comics?
Yeah, so, I mean, I always start, so I guess I'll just go. I read Batman the Drowned #1 this week, which I believe these are all one-shots. Again, this is another one of the origin stories for the Dark Knights, which are the Nemesis characters in Dark Knight's Metal, which is the current story going on in DC Comics. So this one in particular focuses on the Aqua version of Batman, who also happens to be female. It focuses on her fight on her Earth against the Atlanteans, where she ends up genetically modifying herself to have the powers of Aquaman. It intertwines that story with the current story, which is her fighting with Aquaman and Mera on the Earth that we're most familiar with in DC Comics, where the event is taking place. It's implied throughout the comic that she's evil because of her loss of Sylvester Kyle. But there's other factors sprinkled in the book as well. By the way, her name is Bryce Wayne because she's a girl, and obviously Selena Kyle's a boy, so it's Sylvester Kyle.
That's real dumb.
Oh, yeah. I rolled my eyes super hard because it's one of the first things she says in the comic. But that being said, like, I appreciate that they went a different route with this character and made it like a female version of Bruce Wayne. But you don't need to name drop the Sylvester Kyle. I thought that was pretty cheesy. This character, she ends up creating a type of like Aqua Army to help her lead the submerged Gotham City from her Earth. And then it eventually leads to the Batman That Laughs recruiting her to his cause, which I'm not exactly sure what that cause is yet because I'm still not caught up on Dark Knight's Metal because of the chaos in my life of moving right now. But these one-off stories regarding the origins of the Dark Knights have been really fun so far. There's a couple that I still need to read from a couple weeks back, but it's been nice little tie-ins that have pleasantly surprised me. So I didn't like Dark Knight's Metal #1. Hopefully things have kind of course corrected with 2 and 3. Again, I have not read them. I don't know for sure, but these tie-ins have at least been fun.
Yeah, I've heard some really good things about this particular tie-in. I have not read it. I am also really, really far behind. It feels weird. It seems like every time that one of us gets behind, the other one, for whatever reason, also gets behind. I don't think I've been to the comic shop in like a month, which is weird for me. I mean, obviously it's weird for me. I go every week. So I had not read this one yet. Actually, I have a huge stack that I just ordered from Midtown to come in, and I'm trying to finally get caught back up so I can start doing my new comic book day Facebook Live videos because I really enjoyed doing that. I've kind of gotten away from it. I don't think I've done it in like a month and a half, which sucks because I really enjoyed doing that. But yeah, I'm not caught up on this book either.
Cool. So in that case, what did you read?
I read Deadpool versus Old Man Logan #1, which is the first part, I think, of a 5-part or maybe 6-part miniseries. And honestly, I think I might be done with these Deadpool versus books. They always kind of seem like a good idea in theory because I do like that character. And it's usually a character that I find interesting. He's up against Punisher most recently and now Old Man Logan. So I always think that they're really cool. Like, oh man, that sounds awesome. And then the execution, it never really pays off. And this book is no different. The reason that they're beefing is really stupid. Just really, really stupid. And then, of course, as in with all of these Deadpool versus or anything versus another hero character, you know eventually that there's going to be an outside force that's going to come in and then they're going to team up. That outside force, which is already present in the first issue, is really heavy-handed. So I didn't really like the way that they started beefing. I don't like the way that they're bringing them together. So the story itself is just a hot mess. And then at the very least with these books, you got it with Deadpool versus the Punisher. The action was really cool. This book, you would think the action would be really cool because you have one of the best mercenaries in the world at Deadpool, and you have Wolverine, who's just an ultimate badass. You would think that the action would be really cool. It's not. It's really lackluster. It's pretty much straightforward. You've seen this in 1,000 other Wolverine or Deadpool books before. I will say, in their defense, just a kind of a little nitpick that I have with Wolverine's character. So his claws are the strongest metal in the world, yet he fights, it seems like, a lot of people with like samurai swords. And they always block his claws with samurai swords. Wouldn't you think that he would just cut through those swords every single fucking time?
Yeah, he should.
So that is something that irritates me, and they kind of not really tackle it, but when Deadpool and him are fighting, he does slice through the swords pretty easily, and I thought that was pretty awesome. That was pretty much the only positive thing I took from this entire book, and it was like 2 panels. So yeah, don't read this book. I will not be continually to read this book because it's really just a cash grab. It's for fans of Deadpool and Old Man Logan. I mean, it's just the story sucks and the action sucks. Don't read this.
Yeah, this was the first Deadpool versus book that I consciously chose not to pick up. I've stuck with them all over the last few years, and this week when I was looking at the new books I needed to get, I chose not to add this to what I was reading because I'm just kind of over it at this point. And I am resistant to Old Man Logan even being around right now because that kind of stuff is just so obvious right now whenever they're playing off the popularity of the movie Logan. And that's why that character is here. So that always irks me a bit, and I refuse to buy into it.
You don't read All New Wolverine, do you?
No.
Okay, well, he played a part in one of the volumes of All New Wolverine. I actually thought it was pretty cool. I liked it.
I know that I'm definitely in the minority here, and it hurts my geek cred a little bit, but honestly, I'm not the biggest Wolverine fan. I think that I think he's an overrated character, to be honest. And
I always just thought he was a badass. I mean, as most people do.
Yeah, I definitely understand I'm in the minority, but yeah, not my favorite X-Men by far.
All right, cool, man. So, nerd news?
Yeah, so this first one, I just kind of compiled stuff because we took a week off, so a lot of trailers over the last 2 weeks, and I'm curious which ones you've watched, but the first story is X-Files related, and is it Gillian or Gillian Anderson?
It's Jillian.
Gillian Anderson said she's done with X-Files after this next season that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, this will be season 11, so at a certain point, come on. Like, you can't keep doing the same stuff over and over again. I love that show. I'm definitely a late adopter to it, for sure. I did a series retrospective a couple of years ago on the blog. You can definitely check that out, the Nerds Podcast. But I really fell in love with that show. It's really, really just as good as advertised. I really liked it. This past mini series, I guess season 10, whatever you want to call it. I think it was only 6 episodes. It had some really, really good episodes. I think it was episode 2 or 3 was one of my favorite episodes of the series as a whole. It has Rhys Darby in it. Is it Darby?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He plays like a were-monster, and it's really, really funny. It's kind of a perfect example. Like, watch this episode. If you don't like this episode, you're probably not going to like the series sort of episode. And I really, really loved that episode quite a lot. But, I mean, at a certain point, as an artist, you would think that, okay, well, I've done this character for so long. Let's do something else for a little bit. And I think they're definitely to that point. They probably were to that point years ago. But with the way that season 10 ended, you can't not do a season 11. Like, that would have been a slap in the face to hardcore fans. I mean, I felt like it was a slap in the face to me, and I just got to this show a couple of years ago. I can't imagine how really hardcore fans feel from day one, how that last episode hit them. That was such an asshole move.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't watch this show. But thank you for all the exposition. I was just looking for your thoughts on her not coming back.
Well, don't be a dick. Don't ask me a question about one of my favorite shows.
I learned from the best. All right. The Han Solo movie has a title. It's Solo, a Star Wars story. So a lot of buildup and them not releasing a title for this movie for something that's pretty basic and lackluster.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, it seems like the first idea they had, and then they were just like, they couldn't think of a better one, so they were just like, fuck it, just make it that.
I doubt this movie's going to be good. I I think it's just a mixture of things. I think people are going to be resistant to somebody else playing Han Solo. Obviously, there was the director shakeup and all of that stuff. So I don't think that this movie is going to be well received like every other Star Wars movie has.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I want it to be good. Of course, we're going to root for any Star Wars movie, but I don't see it. It already has the deck stacked against it.
Yeah, but speaking of Star Wars movies that do look good, there was a trailer released for The Last Jedi, a new trailer. And I know you posted you weren't going to watch it because Ryan Johnson said his opinion is you should avoid everything. Did you ever end up watching it?
No, I have not. I'm a Bears fan, and it premiered during the Monday Night Football game of the Bears, and I just went in the other room.
No, it was a really good trailer. I don't think it gives anything away, though. I don't know. I mean, you're not missing anything, or I don't think it's giving anything away for you if you were to watch it. But I mean, honestly, I don't give a fuck either way. So,
okay, cool. Thanks for asking. I will probably see. I know for a fact I will see a little bit of it because I'm the one that posts the nerd news to each episode on a blog post. So
you have to check the hyperlink to make sure you're not linking to porn or something.
Oh, I periodically like to link to porn just to make sure you guys are paying attention.
Speaking of trailers, these last two nerd news items are trailers. Did you watch the trailer for New Mutants?
No, but I've heard some really awesome things, and I feel like a fraud that I haven't watched it yet.
It looks super fucking weird. I'm not very familiar with the New Mutants, but I didn't realize. I mean, in the comics, is it a horror? Is it a horror comic?
No, I don't think so.
So this is it looks like a straight up horror movie. And that's weird to me. It didn't really. I mean, I appreciate that they're doing something different. God knows we don't need more shitty X-Men movies, but this just didn't look like it fit in with anything. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we need something that doesn't fit in with these other superhero movies.
Is it Josh Boone?
Yeah, Josh Boone.
He loves Stephen King, man.
Yeah,
so that might have a big role in it.
He's attached to 7 different Stephen King projects right now, I think, at this point.
For sure.
God, I hope he eventually makes one because I do think he's talented. But this movie definitely looks different, so we'll see. And then the Black Panther trailer. Did you watch that one?
I have not.
God damn, man.
I'll watch the first one, man. I don't care to see 3 different trailers for a movie I'm going to eventually watch anyway.
But we do this fucking podcast every week, and I ask you, do you do this trailer?
You apparently don't care what I say anyways.
You're right, I don't. I like the first trailer better. Everybody was blown away by this second trailer, and I thought, honestly, that it looked kind of meh. I mean, it's cool to see these characters, but that first trailer was just like nothing I've ever seen before, and this trailer looked like more of the same. So I'm sure this movie is going to be amazing. There's tons of talent attached to it. We got to see a little bit more of Andy Serkis in this trailer, which was cool. But at the end of the day, I like that first one a lot better.
I will say that first poster was really, really bad. The second one, not so bad.
Which one's the second one?
Where they have all the characters on the poster.
And the first one is the one that looks super photoshopped if you're on the throne, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. So that's it, bro.
All right, so this is going to be a short episode because I think our next review is.
I mean, I could pull some more nerd news out of my ass.
All right, so are we gonna do more nerd news, or do you want to move on to the review?
I was on comicbook.com, just like, hey, anything happened today?
Nope. No. Oh, I saw a Boo 2 story.
I don't know why it's on comicbook.com.
Because they don't give a shit. They just post whatever the fuck they want on there.
You're right, they do.
And most of that's garbage anyways.
It is.
All right, so we're going to do the Snowman review.
I honestly would have maybe rather done a Boo 2 review. We'll get into it.
I haven't seen Boo 1.
Yes, so you'd be lost.
Yeah, I feel like I missed a lot of crucial plot points. So like I said, we're going to be doing a review of The Snowman, which is based on a novel of the same name. It's directed by Tomas Alfredson, who did Let the Right One In and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. It stars Michael Fassbender as Detective Harry Hole, who gets sucked in. God damn it, I knew it. I knew as soon as I said it that you were going to laugh.
Oh, that's awful. Sorry.
So, are you done?
Don't fucking say it again because I'm not going to be able to not laugh.
All right. So, Harry Hole
God damn it.
who gets sucked into investigating a series of missing person cases that leads into a manhunt for a serial killer that turns his victims into snowmen for no fucking reason whatsoever. The Snowman leading up to it was kind of like the polar opposite of what I talked about with Happy Death Day. I thought the promo material for the Snowman looked awesome. Like, I was really excited for it. I think it was like 3 weeks ago I texted you about how excited I was about the Snowman. I couldn't have been more wrong about this movie because it looked like a horror movie and it looked really good and it had Michael Fassbender. Martin Scorsese was producing it. I was like, oh man, this is going to be awesome. But yeah, it was, obviously we're going to get into it, but it just, leading up to this movie, we've talked about this 100 times, but we try to stay away from reviews. I know it's not doing well, but I knew it wasn't doing well before I saw the movie because I was seeing stories getting leaked out of literally the director making excuses for how bad his movie was before the movie had even come out yet. So as much as I try to stay away from reviews, it was kind of hard to stay away from that because that was pretty bad. You know the movie's going to be bad if they're already making excuses for it. I was still kind of excited just because I like to kind of go in with my own opinion and try to stay fresh as much as possible. But yeah, I still try to stay excited for this movie because I thought the promo material looked good. Plus, that first scene was actually pretty good. Like, I liked that first scene a lot. I mean, it goes downhill real quick, but I thought that first scene was pretty effective.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was a big old pile of shit.
So, is that your broad strokes?
No. Broad strokes. This is a weird segue now because I was really proud of this joke, and now it's not going to come across very well. But I'll take movies I'll never watch again for 300. So that was, sorry.
Yeah, that was real dumb.
Overall, this movie is an incoherent mess that is the slowest of slow burns. As I watched this movie, my brain was acting like I was like surfing Wikipedia. You know, when you surf Wikipedia and you go from article to article to article and you just fall down this rabbit hole. That's what my brain did during this movie because the story could not capture my attention at all.
That's what this movie was doing.
Well, as soon as Val Kilmer showed up, I was like, "Oh, what's he been up to? How did he ever have the jawline to be Batman?" And that's
he had cancer, dude.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I thought that he just had like a problem with donuts.
Like he did get fat.
You can't blame all of that on cancer, right?
You could blame some of it.
When did he have cancer?
Just like recently, man. Like
before or after this was filmed?
He was at Indiana Comic-Con, and he almost missed that.
What kind of cancer?
I don't know, man. I don't know his whole life. I'm just saying.
Don't fucking bring it, like, come on. Was it jaw cancer? Because if not...
I don't know.
Because if
Look
not...
it up. You literally have all of the answers to every question in the entire world in your hand.
Because if it wasn't jaw cancer...
you're asking somebody that's a moron.
Then my statement about his jawline stands.
Okay, so I'm going to go into my broad strokes while you look it up. So I really, really like the girl with the dragon tattoo. And I thought, judging by the promo material, I felt like that was kind of what this movie was going for. If the filmmakers wanted to make Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, except for just a boring version of that movie, because they really succeeded. The one article, and I'm probably going to have to bring this up a couple of times during the review, that I did read about this movie, is that basically the director mentioned that they didn't shoot the whole book, and you can see that like in the movie because there are several things. I don't want to say that there was a lot of fat that could have been cut. It's just that things felt unnecessary in this movie because I felt like they were underdeveloped. So it's like, oh, we'll see a little piece of this character here. And then I feel like since the book is so popular, I've never read the book, but since it's so popular, that character has to play a big role in the book. Like that character has to make sense in the book or it wouldn't have ever got made into a movie. So I just feel like the filmmakers did the book an injustice by not developing some of these characters and not filming at least the whole book because I don't know. It seems like they just kind of jumped from one thing to another.
Val Kilmer had oral cancer, so
So yeah, he had jaw cancer. You're
No.
a dickhead. It's official. You're a jackass.
yeah, he had the same cancer Michael Douglas had. But
Did he get it from the same way that Michael Douglas claims to get it?
I'm sure that he would like to claim that that's how he got it. But yeah, so I apologize to Val Kilmer if your jawline was in fact impacted by your oral cancer. But at the same point, like, come on, his career has gone down the shitter.
I will say, I'm trying to segue away from Val Kilmer's cancer, but I will say the one positive, because I know that we tend to stay negative on some of our reviews. The one positive about this film that I really, really enjoyed was the cinematography. I thought the movie itself looked beautiful. Other than that, it had nothing. So let's jump right into the story. How'd you feel about the story?
Probably the most boring crime thriller I've ever seen in my life. I love stories with this type of premise, but it's unreal how hard they didn't stick the landing here. Every plot point or plot shift had me asking, why do I care? It didn't do a very good job of making me give a shit about the plethora of characters that were introduced over its 2-hour running time, and I kept having to ask myself if I missed something because of how little I cared about the plot points in this movie and how terribly they were set up.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I thought that the first scene was cool, and I think it's kind of a microcosm of the entire story, because they introduced something cool, and then it was never developed whatsoever, and it never pays off towards the end of the movie. There's so many examples of that. Like, there's a character that gets killed that she apparently has a twin sister for no reason whatsoever. I think the only reason that she had a twin sister was because the actress is kind of famous, and so they just didn't want to kill her off and her not be in the movie. But the twin sister is barely in the movie, so why the fuck is she there? Like, there's no reason for that character to have a twin sister. J.K. Simmons is in this movie for no fucking reason whatsoever. Like, again, I think that character probably plays a bigger role in the book, but we're not reviewing the book. We're reviewing the movie, and his character is not needed whatsoever in this movie. And Val Kilmer, again, cancer or not, he didn't need to be in this movie at all. There's so many examples. So I went and saw this movie with my wife, and we literally played the game of just kind of pinging back and forth while we were driving home. Was, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Like, there's so many examples of that in this movie. And I keep going back to that article that I read that they didn't shoot the whole movie. And I get with adaptations, because the books are usually like 400 or 500, 600 pages, where you have to take liberties of what you're going to include and what you're not going to include. We just reviewed It, which is a massive, massive book. I think obviously they were smart to break it up into the kid's story and the adult story. But even the kid's story, they took some stuff out and changed a few things. So they definitely took liberties with that. I felt like, again, never read the book, never will read the book because of this awful movie. But I felt like they included every thread from the book. They just didn't develop any of them. So it was like, oh, here's fan service by we're going to include this character, and this character. But they don't matter in the scope of the movie. I think that they could have done the book much more justice if they just pared it down and it was just a really tight story between Michael Fassbender, which I'm not going to say his character's name again, and the killer. If they just had a cat and mouse detective story between the two of them, I think it would have been a much more interesting movie. I mean, it couldn't have been less interesting because it was boring as fuck. But I just feel like they try to do too much, but they didn't have enough time to develop it, and they just didn't know how to pare it down.
Yes.
All right. So moving right on to performances. Well, how'd you feel about the actresses and actress? I said actresses twice.
Yeah, you sure did.
Go for it, man.
I mean, I don't know. So Michael Fassbender, like, I would consider myself a fan of his until this movie. I kind of come to realize. I don't
think it was that bad.
No, I've come to realize he's very one note. There's not much fluctuation between his films and his performances. Like, he was good in Steve Jobs, but I didn't see Steve Jobs. I saw Michael Fassbender still. And I don't know that he has the range that people give him credit for. Like, he does these smaller movies sometimes, and he's also able to transition to these blockbusters, and he does have a bit of a drawing power, but I don't know that he's a fantastic actor, to be honest with you. And this movie kind of opened my eyes to that as I watched his performance. As far as everybody else goes, I mean, nobody blew me out of the water. The guy that plays Michael Fassbender's ex-girlfriend's boyfriend, which is like a whole thing, and just too many characters, I can't remember names. He was pretty awful, especially towards the end of the movie.
Yes.
And but besides that, I mean, nobody was awful. Like J.K. Simmons was serviceable. Everybody else was serviceable. Like even Michael Fassbender, even all the shit I just gave him, he was serviceable. He was just very one note.
Yeah, I feel like, well, first of all, I disagree with what you said about Michael Fassbender. I don't think that he's one note.
You're just smitten by his giant penis.
I was really hoping that we were going to get through this whole review without you bringing up his penis.
If anytime we review a movie with Michael Fassbender, and you can bet your ass I bring up his giant penis.
I don't know why.
Because it's a giant penis.
Who cares?
That's all I see anymore. I can't even look him in the eyes.
That's a weird thing to say, man. Anyways, I feel like he definitely phoned this one in. I think he was not at his best for sure, but it's hard with the material that he's working with. J.K. Simmons was not in this movie hardly at all. So it's like, how do you judge his performance? Because his character didn't matter within the scope of the movie. Val Kilmer's performance was weird, mostly because I thought that maybe they dubbed his voice a little bit. Like, I thought that, and I was like, that can't be right. And my wife thought the same thing. She literally said the same thing as we were driving home. She's like, did they dub his voice? I was like, I think they might have.
There was a scene or two where voices did not match up to lips.
Yeah, so I think they might have done something in post-production. We don't know. I mean, his performance wasn't bad. It was just that aspect of it was a little distracting. And again, not necessarily performance-wise, but his character didn't need to be in this movie. I get that they were trying to draw motivation from the female detective, but her character didn't really matter that much in this movie anyway. So I don't understand the dilemma there. Like, just don't include his character in this movie, but that's not really performance-wise. Let's see if there's anybody else. I think that's pretty much all I have. Like, again, there's not a ton of people. There's a lot of people in this movie, but none of them share a ton of screen time. I will say that you brought up, I don't know his name either, because he had a European name. Like, he had, like, I don't know what his name was, but his Michael Fassbender's ex-girlfriend's boyfriend, that his arc was really heavy-handed. Like, I knew pretty early on that there was something up with him. But yeah, his performance was really bad. And when he shared the screen with Michael Fassbender, you could tell who the better actor was for sure. Even though I do think that Michael Fassbender was phoning that one in.
Could you tell who has the bigger penis?
God damn it! Why do I keep? Like, I feel like I just keep letting you do it, and I'm extremely uncomfortable about you talking about another man's dick while you're right next to me.
Would you prefer I talk about your dick?
I'm okay. I mean, you're still talking about a really big dick either way.
I mean, I feel like that shows how uninterested I am in this movie and this review, that I'd rather make jokes about Michael Fassbender's penis than even talk about it. Like, it was.
I think it's beyond you making jokes. I think you're in love with him.
Have you seen Shame?
No.
Because that's the movie where you see his penis. And it's very big.
God damn it. All right. So the last segment that we do in each of our reviews, this has kind of been a mess, but it makes sense because this is a mess of a movie.
Yeah, well, it's been a mess of an episode, so.
We're a little off our game today. Anyways, is action. There's almost none of it in this movie. That opening scene, a little bit, except for maybe in the middle, there was a little bit of a rapey tackle by Michael Fassbender. It wasn't with his dick. Don't say his dick. Don't bring it up again.
You pervert.
Anyways, and then even the showdown at the end was super lame. Yeah. Like, super lame.
No suspense at all. Like, so, I mean, this last segment of our reviews typically change. Sometimes it's comedy, sometimes it's horror. Most of the time it's action. Like, if this segment for this movie was boredom I felt while I watched it, then this movie would excel, like, quite a bit. but there's literally nothing we can think of for this last category that makes sense in relation to this movie because fucking nothing happens. Maybe suspense, but the suspense was awful. Like, it's just a bad movie.
Yeah, don't watch it. So, star rating.
1.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 2. There was a couple of things I liked about it, but not a whole lot.
I know something you probably did like about it that I'm not going to say. But
Just say it. Just say it.
No.
Just get it over with. It'll be the last time.
Nope, I'm not your dancing monkey. I think that the implication is enough.
All right. So, nerd favorite, what is it this week?
Let's see. So I've been watching a lot of late night TV lately, like I typically do. And I honestly don't know this about you, and I wanted to know, who is your favorite late night TV host? If you want more options to choose from, you can do of all time. If you like, I don't give a shit, because mine is somebody current, and that is Jimmy Kimmel. This isn't just because of the traction he's gotten over the last few weeks as a result of his monologues around healthcare and gun violence and that stuff. Like, I've always genuinely been a fan of him and his show. I think that his segments are really funny, and I really like his sarcastic and sometimes mean sense of humor, because obviously you and I can relate to that. That's kind of the sense of humor we have on this show sometimes. I love the inside jokes with his hatred of Matt Damon and how that's been a long running joke on his show, as well as like things like celebrity mean tweets, and whenever he interviews people on the street and makes fun of them, just so on and so forth. Like, I really like his sense of humor quite a bit. And I think that his political stance that he's had on his show this year around gun violence and healthcare has made an impact and has made me just love him even more. So that is my favorite late night TV show host.
Yeah, I like Jimmy Kimmel quite a lot. I haven't watched him recently. I'll catch the clips here and there, and I do like the mean tweets. I think that's a genius segment. You don't even have to do anything for that. You just have to get the people to read them, and I think it's really, really funny. I like them quite a lot. But I haven't watched him in a while, so I can't use that one. I don't know. I want to go to Conan because I watched him probably the most and consistently throughout my life. He kind of captured me as being in like high school, junior high, when he first came on the air, as just being that weird guy. And I felt like even as a high schooler, like I was already kind of done with the stereotypical late night talk show kind of format. And he was a little bit weirder, and I appreciated that. And so I kind of liked him a little bit more. But unfortunately, his show on TBS has kind of gone to the more conventional talk show host kind of stuff. And I do like Jimmy Fallon to a certain extent. I do think the games do get a little boring pretty quickly. The reason I like Jimmy Fallon is his interviews seem legit. Like, in most talk shows, it's, oh, well, I heard that you went to this thing. Come on, you know that they're just reading off the cue cards, and they had this story prepped. And maybe Jimmy Fallon is the same way. It just feels like it's more of a conversation than most talk show hosts. But my official answer, even though this was really long-winded, is, and this is kind of a knee-jerk reaction, I know, because he's fairly new, is John Oliver. Last Week Tonight is one of my favorite shows. It is just fantastic. It definitely straddles the line of being legit journalists, but also being just fucking hilarious. Like, it's a really, really funny show, but it's so, I get most of my news from that show now. Like, it's really good of kind of blurring that line between legit journalism and just being really funny. And I think that he does a really good job of that. And he makes fun of himself, which I think is really funny. He has some really long-standing gags that I appreciate. Well, most notably, he is determined to convince everybody that there's only one Olsen twin. And I think that's kind of funny. I really like John Oliver quite a lot.
Yeah, John Oliver's good. And I would say Conan used to be my favorite, like back in high school. And I hate to say that I grew out of him, but I think I did kind of grow out of his sense of humor. And I will say in high school, we had to do a project where we like sent a letter to a famous person, and I wrote to him, and I was hoping for like an autographed picture or something, and I never heard anything, and he crushed my spirit. So
yeah, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, but it's on all honesty, he probably never got the letter, right? So, but yeah, I really liked his late night show back in the day, but he's kind of transitioned, like you said, into more traditional stuff, and it's not necessarily been for me too much.
Yeah, we are obviously pretty big gamers, and he does a Clueless Gamer, and I really, really like that segment quite a lot.
Yeah, I like Clueless Gamer as well. I think that's probably my favorite segment of his at this point.
I'm not going to even try to butcher his name, but
Kumail Nanjiani?
Yes.
Man, we are on the same fucking wavelength. There's no reason I should know that.
He just did a segment with him, and he did a voice for the game, Shadow of War.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfect because one of the reasons why I love that segment so much is Conan is such a great improver, and why I love that particular episode or segment of Clueless Gamer was they could bounce back and forth. Like sometimes when he has guys on there, you could tell that they're just not that comfortable improvising with him. And so I really loved that segment. Plus, it was also helped that he did a voice for the game. And so they kind of had fun with that. But yeah, if you haven't watched that already, definitely Google it. I think I actually posted on our Facebook at one point, right after I watched it, how just funny it was. So you could also check out our Facebook.
What's funny about that one, too, is they bring in like a developer from the game and just give him shit. And that's happened before, too. I forget which one. Maybe like it might have been a Grand Theft Auto game where they're doing a Clueless Gamer and they're kind of shitting on the game. And then they find out like halfway through it that the people
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy.
Elijah Wood one.
Yeah, they find out halfway through that like the developers are on the other side, like watching them on a TV, and it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, they have to literally walk by them to get out of the room. It's pretty funny, but like he has a lot of different people on Clueless Gamer with him, and at one point he had PewDiePie on it, and I don't know. He just seemed so uncomfortable, like improvising with Conan. Maybe it was just because he was nervous being on national television, but I think those segments are the best when he can have somebody that can actually bounce back and forth with him.
For sure, dude.
Why'd you make that awkward?
I don't know, because I'm ready for you to wrap this shit up. I'm sweating next to you right now.
It's definitely
bodies are glistening.
All right. So as always, we appreciate if you subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use. We're probably on it. Check out our website, thenerdspodcast.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, except for you, John, because you are blocked. Check out.
Fuck you, John.
I swore I wasn't going to say his name, but fuck that asshole. Anyways, you can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram. They're both at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Google+. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. And finally, vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt,
we are The Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys. We're going to accidentally kiss.
It's not going to be an accident. We got to start over.